Good evening and welcome to the Budgery and Procrastination Department. This evening on the bench I have got a Leitch CDC-3501, and this is a crate that can take a number of cards, and this particular one has two cards that convert analog component to digital component, or in other words, if you imagine something like RGB analog or component as in Luma and two chromas, this converts it to SDI. As I say, there are two cards inside, and you might be able to spot that this panel is removable because I believe that these were normally configured with one card was analog component to digital, and then the other could be either the same or something different. In this case they're both the same card, but you can still see that that panel is removable. The whole front cover comes off like this and folds down, and then we have some setup instructions on the front, and you can also see the front of the cards poking out where there are various configuration controls and things that we can fiddle with, but we will get back to that in just a second. If I spin it, oopsies, if I spin it round, you can see that, as you would expect, you have your three components in, be that Luma and the two different chromas, or RG and B, and we also have a syncs input, and it's duplicated for the second card, and then your serial outputs. As you can see, there's been some minor damage to this one, and one of the reasons this video has taken so long to do is I did think about doing a repair video, but I have decided against that for a variety of reasons. You can also spot that unfortunately one of the ears on this was damaged in shipping, but fortunately a colleague of mine has 3D printed a nice replacement one, and I was a wee bit skeptical about whether that would hold, but it seems to do the job really well, so I can't complain about that. So let's take one of these cards out. Alright, so I apologise that the lighting situation is not that brilliant here. I am sort of in the process of converting this area into a studio type thing, and well, yeah, we'll get to there. We'll get there in the end, but just at the moment it's not just quite there yet. But needless to say, this is the card, and you can probably spot right away where the three components come in up at the top of the board here. If I just zoom in slightly, you will see we have three of everything along here. We have a couple of very custom made looking filters, and then, if I just get the camera to stay where I leave it. I also need a better tripod, but anyway. Yes, so we have the three filters here. Each of the components goes through the low pass filter. We then have three identical analog to digital converters, and these are fairly dumb in that they aren't specifically video ADCs or anything like that. Although interestingly, one of the suggested applications was for decoding Muse, and if you don't know what that is, well, it's way too complicated to go into in this video, but I thought that was an interesting side note nonetheless. These are put out 10-bit values in parallel. They then go into these three chips, which are GF9102s. They are essentially digital interpolating filters, so we are feeding the raw signals in here. They're getting further filtered, and also interestingly, this is a FIFO chip, so my guess is that on each clock cycle the chip will read values from, I'm guessing, Luma and one of the chromas, and then the other chroma will be fed into the FIFO, and then we will get that value later on in the cycle so that the pixels all remain the same. But that's just speculation on my part, really. Down here we have a bunch of FPGAs or CPLDs or something of that description, and they are obviously taking the three raw digital components, splicing them together and feeding them finally into the GS9002, which produces serial video. and that's what the output is. If we spin this round to the front, you can see there is a microprocessor there and a few other odds and ends, and we have our controls on the front. So the way this works is you select what it is that you want to set up on the thumb wheel type switch here. You then have up-down controls using these switches. And there's also this switch chooses whether you want to do 625 line or NTSC style video. There's a few other configs here as well. For example, you can switch it between 8-bit and 10-bit, whether you want it to use RGB input or separated component. And finally, you can choose whether it gets its syncs via the external sync input or with syncs on either the Luma or the green channel. So that's pretty much all the controls that there are there. So yeah, that's pretty much all there is to see with this. I propose that we now stick it in the rack and see if it actually works. Alright, so the coder is now in the rack. And I've wired it up to the CRT that's over there that you saw just a second ago. And I was sort of looking around in here going, well, what do I have that produces analog component, that I can demonstrate this with? So I found this, which I'm borrowing from someone at the moment. So I've plugged this up, and if I take this out and put the fuse in, we should hopefully see in a couple of seconds this will come to life. And we have some lights flashing, and the CRT has come to life. So yeah, it looks like all this stuff is working. So yeah, excellent job. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll have another video that doesn't take 3 months to come out next time.